What if the most dangerous book in history was a version of the Bible meant to encourage immorality? A tiny omission in the Ten Commandments led to bankrupted printers, furious bishops, and a global race to destroy every heretical page. Witness the chaos caused by the world's most expensive and scandalous typo. In the early 17th century, the printed word carried a weight that is difficult to fully comprehend today. It was not simply communication. It was authority made physical. Every page that left a press had the power to shape belief, law, and obedience across entire populations. In this tightly controlled world of ink and scripture, Robert Barker stood at the center of it all as the king's official printer. Barker's responsibility was enormous. He held the exclusive royal patent to print the King James Bible, the most important religious text in the English-speaking world. This was not a competitive industry. It was a monopoly backed by the crown, meaning every error was not just a mistake in business, but a potential crisis of faith and governance. His workshop in London operated under constant pressure, where precision was expected, but perfection was demanded. Inside the print house, there was nothing modern or automated about the process. Every page began as chaos. Thousands of tiny metal letters stored in trays, each one individually picked and arranged by hand. Workers had to compose entire pages in reverse, locking mirrored lines of text into iron frames known as forms. Once set, these forms were inked and pressed onto paper with mechanical force. Then the process repeated again and again, for months on end. The labor was grueling in ways that are almost hard to imagine now. There were no digital backups, no undo buttons, no second drafts, in the modern sense. If a mistake was made deep into the process, entire sections of type had to be dismantled and rebuilt from scratch. The work was repetitive, exhausting, and carried out under flickering candlelight that strained already tired eyes. As demand for printed Bibles grew across England and its territories, speed became just as important as accuracy. But speed came at a cost. Workers were pushed to their limits. Fatigue was constant. Small errors became more likely, but also easier to miss. In a system built entirely on manual precision, human exhaustion was the weakest link in the chain. It was within this fragile environment that a single error was born. Not dramatic, not immediately noticeable, just the absence of one small word. In the seventh commandment, a command meant to define moral boundaries for generations, a crucial knot disappeared. What should have been a warning against sin was quietly transformed into its opposite. The line that was meant to read, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," was printed as "Thou shalt commit adultery." At first glance, even this kind of error seems impossible to overlook. Yet it survived. The page moved through stages of review, where proofreaders compared printed sheets against approved manuscripts. But proofreading in the 17th century was itself a human process, dependent on attention, fatigue, and assumption. Familiarity with the text often worked against accuracy. The mind sees what it expects to see, not always what is actually there, so the error remained. Locked into metal, pressed into ink, repeated across an entire print run of around 1,000 copies, each one carrying the same silent inversion of a sacred command. When the first copies began circulating, the mistake did not immediately reveal itself. Early distribution meant that books were already leaving London, entering churches, homes, and private collections. For a brief moment, everything appeared normal. Then someone read the commandment closely enough to notice what should not have been possible. At first, there was confusion, then disbelief, then alarm. A commandment instructing adultery was not a minor typographical issue. It was a theological rupture. The Bible was not simply describing morality, it was defining it. And now, on paper, sanctioned by royal authority, that definition appeared reversed. News traveled quickly through religious circles. Clergy members examined copies. Scholars verified the text. Once confirmed, the reaction shifted from confusion to outrage. This was no longer a printing mistake. It was something far more dangerous. A corruption of divine law itself, circulating under official approval. And as the realization spread, attention began turning toward the man responsible for producing the text. Robert Barker, who had once been trusted with the most sacred printing responsibility in the kingdom, now found himself at the center of a growing storm that would soon reach the highest levels of power. What had begun as a single missing word was about to become something far larger than anyone involved could control. By the time the full scope of the error reached authority, the reaction was immediate and absolute. This was not treated as an accident that could be quietly corrected. It was treated as a threat to moral order itself. The idea that a royal Bible could appear to instruct sin struck at the foundation of both church and state. King Charles I responded with forceful urgency. Orders were issued for the immediate seizure and destruction of every known copy of the defective Bible. What followed was not a quiet recall, but a coordinated eradication effort. Copies were pulled from circulation wherever they could be found. Booksellers were questioned. Households were searched. Any remaining stock was treated as dangerous material. The scale of the response reflected the severity of the perceived offense. This was not about correcting a misprint. It was about preventing a text from existing in public memory. A Bible that appeared to authorize adultery, even by accident, could not be allowed to circulate under any circumstances. Robert Barker was swiftly stripped of his royal printing license. The privilege that had once defined his entire career was revoked without hesitation. Alongside this professional destruction came a financial penalty that would prove devastating. A fine of £300 was imposed, an enormous sum at the time, capable of destroying even established businesses. But punishment did not end there. The logistical effort to retrieve the books became a nightmare. Around 1,000 copies had already been distributed. Some were in churches, some in private homes, some already far beyond London's immediate reach. Each copy had to be located, accounted for, and destroyed before it could spread further or be interpreted as legitimate scripture. In practice, this proved nearly impossible to fully control. Books disappear easily. They are gifted, hidden, forgotten, and resold. Even as authorities worked to suppress the error, some copies inevitably slipped through the cracks. As Barker's world collapsed, so did his life. Once a respected figure operating under royal protection, he became a man without status or protection. Debt accumulated rapidly. Without his license, he had no stable income. Without income, he had no means of recovery. Eventually, he was confined to a debtor's prison, where his final years were spent in obscurity and ruin. The scandal also reshaped the entire printing industry. Stricter censorship laws were introduced. Proofreading processes became more formalized and punitive. The margin for error shrank further, and printers were now held accountable in ways that reflected the political sensitivity of their work. The Wicked Bible had permanently changed how printed truth was policed. Yet, even after the official response, uncertainty lingered. Some contemporaries refused to accept that such an error could be purely accidental. Rumors circulated, suggesting sabotage. Rival printers, jealous of Barker's monopoly, was suspected of deliberately introducing the omission to destroy his reputation. No evidence ever confirmed these theories, but they persisted, feeding the idea that the scandal may have been engineered rather than accidental. Centuries later, the story takes on an almost ironic afterlife. Of the original 1,000 copies printed, only about 15 are known to survive. The rest were destroyed in the frantic attempts to erase the mistake from existence. Those that remain are no longer seen as dangerous artifacts, but as rare historical relics of human error at the intersection of faith and technology. Today, these surviving copies are among the most valuable printed books in existence. Once condemned as blasphemy, they are now preserved in libraries and private collections, studied not for their message, but for what their existence reveals about the fragility of human systems. Because beneath the scandal, beneath the punishment, and beneath the centuries of interpretation, the Wicked Bible ultimately stands as something simple and unsettling. A reminder that even the most sacred systems are still built by human hands. And when human hands fail, even divine words can slip by just a single missing knot. What do you want to see next? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more videos like this.